A 68-year-old man named Robert had walked every single day for 12 years. Strong diet, no major health problems. And then, over 18 months, his legs started failing him. Not from disease, not from injury, from a chair. Here's what was happening, and what finally fixed it. Muscle loss in the legs. What doctors call sarcopenia accelerates dramatically after 50. And a landmark 2022 study published in the Journal of Cachexia, Sarcopenia, and Muscle found that the position most Americans spend 8 to 10 hours a day in is actively compressing the nerves and blood vessels that keep your leg muscles alive and firing. In the next 18 minutes, 3 things. First, the exact sitting position that's quietly switching your leg muscles off. And most people do it without thinking. Second, what's actually happening inside your legs right now if you've been sitting for more than 30 minutes? And third, and this is the one I want you to stay for, a 4-minute movement sequence done right from your chair that has helped patients in their 60s and 70s reverse measurable muscle loss in under 6 weeks. The third one is the one most people have never heard of. Stay with me. But first, you need to understand what's happening in your legs before you can fix it. I want to say something directly to you because I think you deserve honesty. If you've noticed your legs feeling heavier lately, if stairs feel harder than they used to, if you stand up and need a second to find your footing, you may have been told that's just aging. You may have been told there's nothing to be done about it. That's not entirely true, and the research now is clear enough that I don't think it's responsible to stay quiet about it. The problem isn't age. The problem is position. Specifically, the way most people over 50 sit. Hips below knees, thighs pressed flat against a chair seat, ankles crossed or tucked. Creates a physiological environment where your leg muscles receive less oxygen, less nerve signal, and less blood flow than they need to maintain their strength. Do that for years, and the muscles respond the way any underused structure does. They shrink. They weaken. And once that process reaches a certain threshold, the downstream consequences are serious. Falls, fractures, loss of independence. I know that sounds alarming. I don't say it to scare you. I say it because this is one of the very few situations in medicine where the fix is genuinely simple, if you catch it early enough. So here's what I want you to understand before we get into the specifics. Let's start with the most fundamental question. What does sitting actually do to a muscle? Because I think most people picture sitting as simply rest, neutral, the absence of activity. And that framing is exactly why this problem stays hidden for so long. When you sit in a standard chair, a kitchen chair, a sofa, a car seat, your thigh presses against the seat surface. That pressure, consistently applied to the back of the upper leg, partially compresses the femoral artery and the femoral nerve. These are the two major pipelines for blood flow and nerve signaling to your quadriceps, hamstrings, and the muscles running down into your calf. Compress them for 20 minutes and blood flow to the lower extremities drops measurably. A 2019 study out of the University of Missouri measured microvascular function in healthy adults after just 1 hour of uninterrupted sitting and found a 50% reduction in arterial dilation in the lower leg. 50% in healthy adults in 1 hour. Now here's where it gets specific to people over 50. After 50, the walls of your blood vessels lose some of their natural elasticity. They don't bounce back from compression as quickly as they did at 35. So the same hour of sitting that a younger person recovers from in a few minutes takes your vessels significantly longer to normalize. And most people over 50 aren't sitting for 1 hour. They're sitting for 3, 4, sometimes 6 or more, across meals, television, driving, desk work. That chronic, low-level compression, day after day, year after year, is what researchers now believe is a primary driver of the leg muscle loss that most people chalk up to getting older. Margaret, 63, from Cincinnati, came to see me 2 years ago. She was a retired teacher, active her whole life, walked every morning, ate well, no major health issues. But over the prior 18 months, she'd noticed her legs just felt different. Climbing into her SUV had become awkward. She'd stumbled twice on her front porch steps. Her knee extension, the simple motion of straightening your leg against resistance, had dropped significantly on her physical therapy assessment. She hadn't changed her diet. She hadn't stopped walking. But she had, since retirement, been spending an average of 7 hours a day in a recliner, reading and watching television. The chair. We talked through what the research says about seated position and microvascular compression, and she looked at me with that specific expression I've come to recognize. Equal parts frustration and relief. Frustration that no one had told her. Relief that there was a reason. 6 months later, Margaret's knee extension strength had improved by 22%, measured on the same equipment, same protocol. She hadn't joined a gym, she'd changed how she sat, and she'd added one specific movement sequence, which I'll walk you through in a few minutes. But before I do, there's something happening inside your legs right now, if you've been sitting while watching this, that I want you to understand, because it makes the solution make sense in a way that just telling you, sit differently, never will. The first point was about blood flow. This one is about something that goes deeper, something called neuromuscular inhibition. Your muscles don't move on their own. They respond to signals, electrical impulses from motor neurons that run from your spinal cord, through your hip, and down into every major muscle group in your leg. And those motor neurons? They travel right through the tissue that gets compressed when you sit with poor hip mechanics. Here's what the research shows. A 2021 study in the Journal of Orthopedic Research found that prolonged sitting in a hip-flexed position, meaning hips bent at 90 degrees or more, which is the standard chair position, reduces motor neuron firing rate to the gluteal muscles by up to 30% within 40 minutes. The gluteal muscles aren't just about your backside. They are the primary stabilizers of your entire lower extremity chain. When they go quiet, what physical therapists call gluteal amnesia, the quadriceps and hamstrings compensate, they fatigue faster, and the whole system becomes less efficient and less stable. This is why people over 50 who sit for long periods don't just feel weak in their legs, they feel unsteady. They feel like their legs don't quite respond the way they expect. That's not age, that's nerve signal suppression from compressive sitting posture. And here's where it connects back to real risk. Falls are the leading cause of injury-related death in adults over 65 in the United States. According to the CDC, approximately 36 million falls occur among older adults each year, and 32,000 of those result in death. The underlying driver in the majority of preventable falls is lower extremity weakness combined with poor neuromuscular coordination. The sitting position you've been in for years, possibly for decades, may be contributing to the exact neurological pattern that makes falls more likely. I want to pause here because I know this is a lot to take in. If you're still watching, what I'm about to show you next is the most important part of this video. Most people drift off around this point. They've gotten the information and they feel like they understand the problem. But understanding the problem and having a specific, actionable tool to fix it are two completely different things. Stay with me for the next 6 minutes, because what I'm going to walk you through is something I've been using with patients for the past 4 years, and the results have surprised even me. Before that, the third factor, the one that ties blood flow and nerve signal together into a single mechanism you can actually address. It comes down to a protein your muscles make, or stop making, depending on the mechanical signals they receive. And once you understand it, the solution becomes obvious. The protein is called a mechanosensitive growth factor, MGF for short. Your muscle cells produce MGF in response to mechanical loading, meaning in response to being stretched, contracted, and used. MGF is essentially your muscle's internal repair and growth signal. It tells satellite cells, the stem cells that live inside muscle tissue, to activate, replicate, and rebuild fiber. Without MGF, muscle doesn't maintain itself. It slowly degrades. And here's the critical part. MGF production requires not just movement, but a specific kind of movement. Full-range, load-bearing contractions of the muscle at its full length. The problem with prolonged sitting isn't just compression, it's your leg muscles, particularly the quadriceps and hip flexors. Spend hours in a shortened, unloaded position. No stretch, no contraction, no mechanical signal, no MGF. A 2020 study from King's College London found that adults who spent more than 6 hours per day sitting had significantly lower MGF expression in their vastus lateralis, the large quadriceps muscle on the outside of the thigh, compared to adults who broke their sitting with regular movement. The difference in muscle fiber cross-section between the two groups over a 5-year observation period was 18%. 18% less muscle, not from not exercising, from sitting without interruption. Now, here is where everything I've told you turns into something you can actually use. I'm going to show you exactly what to do on screen. The sequence is called a seated muscle activation protocol. I didn't name it. It came out of rehabilitation medicine, originally developed for post-surgical patients who couldn't stand. But the underlying mechanism, triggering MGF production through full-range isometric and dynamic contractions, works exactly the same way for healthy adults who sit for long periods. 4 movements, 4 minutes, done right from your chair. Movement 1, seated heel raises, full range. Both feet flat on the floor. Raise your heels as high as they will go. Toes stay down. Hold for 3 seconds, lower slowly. This activates the gastrocnemius and soleus against gravity, triggers MGF signaling in the calf complex, and restores venous blood flow in the lower leg. 10 repetitions, 30 seconds. Movement 2. Terminal knee extension. Sitting upright, straighten one leg completely. Full extension, lock the knee, flex the quad hard for 3 seconds. Lower, alternate. This is the motion that re-engages the vastus medialis, the teardrop muscle just above your inner knee, which is typically the first muscle to go quiet during prolonged sitting. 10 repetitions each leg, 60 seconds. Movement 3. Seated hip hinge. Scoot to the front of your chair. Place both hands on your thighs. Hinge forward from the hip, not the waist, until you feel a stretch in your hamstring. Hold 2 seconds. Return upright. This restores hip flexor length and triggers a stretch reflex in the posterior chain. 8 repetitions, 45 seconds. Movement 4. Glute squeeze and hold. Sitting fully back in your chair, squeeze both glutes as hard as you can. Don't hold your breath. Hold for 5 seconds. Release completely. This is the direct antidote to gluteal amnesia. It fires the motor neurons that prolonged sitting suppresses and reestablishes the baseline firing rate that keeps your lower extremity chain stable. 8 repetitions, 45 seconds, 4 minutes. That's the protocol. Robert, 71, from Phoenix. He came to me after his second near fall in a parking lot. Both times his leg was simple, in his words. Not been there. Like reaching for a step that wasn't quite where you expected it. His wife had started driving him everywhere because they were both scared. He was not deconditioned in the traditional sense. He walked daily. He did light yard work. But he also spent 5 to 6 hours a day in the same recliner, in the same position, and had for the better part of 8 years. We started the 4-movement protocol. I asked him to set a phone alarm every 75 minutes when he was sitting. Not to stand up and do a full workout, just to do the sequence. 4 minutes. Every hour and 15 minutes. 6 weeks later, his physical therapist measured his single-leg stance time, a standard clinical assessment of neuromuscular stability. At baseline, he could hold it for 4 seconds on his weaker side. At 6 weeks, 11 seconds. His daughter called me to say he'd walked through a crowded airport pulling a rolling bag without holding the wall. That is what re-engaging your neuromuscular system can do. Not a gym, not medication. A 4-minute protocol done consistently. Here's exactly what I want you to do this week. First, set one alarm on your phone for 75 minutes from now. Label it leg sequence. When it goes off, do the 4 movements I walked you through. One time, today, to get the pattern into your body. That's all. Second, look at where you spend most of your sitting time. The chair, the couch, the car seat. Notice what your hips are doing. Are they lower than your knees? Are your thighs pressing flat into the surface? Those are the 2 positions that create the most compressive load on your femoral vessels. A small rolled towel under the back of your thighs, not under your knees, can reduce that compression by 30 to 40% in any chair you're already using. Third, talk to your doctor or your physical therapist before making significant changes, especially if you have any existing joint issues, circulation concerns, or you've been recently told to limit activity for any reason. What I've described here is general information, not a personalized treatment plan. Your provider knows your history, and this conversation is worth having with them. Fourth, give it 6 weeks, not 6 days. The cellular mechanism I described, MGF production and satellite cell activation, operates on a 6 to 8 week timeline. You won't feel a dramatic shift in week 1, but by week 5 or 6, if you've been consistent, you will notice something. Stairs will feel different. Standing up will feel different. Your legs will feel more present. That's not a promise. That's what biology suggests, and what I've seen in patients. Your legs have been carrying you, literally, for over half a century. The fact that they've slowed down isn't failure, it's a signal. And now you know what that signal means and what to do about it. The chair isn't the enemy. Sitting without interruption is. 4 minutes every 75 minutes changes the equation. If what I covered today was useful to you, next week I'm going to cover something that connects directly to this. Why the standard advice about walking 10,000 steps is the wrong target for adults over 60, and what the research actually says about the specific type of movement that preserves leg strength as we age. It's not what most people expect. Take care of yourself. Your legs aren't done yet.